there are a couple questions relating to poverty. I'll read one of them. To have a healthy city, we not only need good buildings, parks, bicycle paths, etc., we also need to reduce poverty in the city. Large projects are often useful and produce many jobs, but how are you going to improve the median income?
Well, under the category, this will not be easy, we have to really create more job creation opportunities. That means two things in my mind. The first is obvious, and that is to encourage the creation of new businesses of all sizes, small, medium, and large, not the scope of Kodak and Xerox, not tens of thousands, because those kinds of employers just do not exist anymore. But I think we need to do something even more significant. And that is, we need to go to our employers who have shown a civic interest in improving the quality of our schools. They want to be invested in making these schools perform better. And the only way these schools are going to perform better, ladies and gentlemen, is that the students see a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, which means a job. So I'm prepared to challenge these businesses to say, if you truly, truly want to get better results in the school, you're going to have to employ more people in Rochester, New York. You're going to have to not send these jobs to Lynchburg, Virginia, and Honduras, and China. You're really going to have to leave some incentive on the table so that these young people can see that there is a reason for them to stay in school. We've got to do that. And right now, unfortunately, to talk about everything we want, right now, that is not the mindset of the American business community. Their mindset is to enhance their bottom line, shareholder profit and return, and that means getting the job done as cheaply as possible. Now, part of the job of mayor is to be a person who can be an effective advocate. And I think that without being confrontational about it, I think we really need to encourage these companies to find ways to incentivize this behavior. The second thing is we need to create opportunities for their parents. So we need to really be open to using our assets as a way to attract more economic activity into our community. It's not beyond the realm of possibility.
It is true that economic opportunity is the long-term answer. And it is also very true that our current public educational system is not preparing people for that opportunity at anything near the level it needs to do so. So in the long run, if that educational opportunity is not present, we won't solve this problem. We're not producing in this country now a job opportunities that do not require education. And so, and Bill, we're not going to be able to give these companies a lecture and tell them to bring this business back here. What we're going to have to do is try to find the kind of things that make sense to do in this country and train people to do them. And there are a lot of good examples of that in Rochester. There are a lot of good examples of that. And many of them are smaller businesses. This particular building, if you went that way in this building, you would see really high-skilled machinists who are still producing machines in this country that are sold everywhere in the world. Everywhere in the world. But the people who work there are highly trained and highly skilled. They don't necessarily have college degrees, but they are well trained, they understand math, they understand the kind of things you have to do that kind of production. That's a long-term answer, I admit, and I don't know that any of us have a short-term answer to curing poverty. In the interim, one of the things that we need to continue to do, and I know we would all agree on this, when we have the kind of financial pressures that are going to push on us in the next couple of years, we have to make sure that the balance we strike in terms of where we put our money and effort is not just in the big projects, but in the neighborhoods and the places where people live. I'm not worried about the big projects. They have constituencies. They'll either go or they won't. And to some extent, they should fly on whether their economics work or don't. It's the neighborhood activities that we need to be concerned about. Because that's what winds up getting pushed out, quite frankly, when you have a tough time. In the long run, though, in the long run, we need to prepare people for the reality of the economy we're going to have in this country. And that's tough medicine in the short run, but in the long run, it's what will make us survive. And one last thing, we are surrounded here by educational institutions that are doing that in a world-class way. One of the things that won't change it forever, but both RIT and U of R, and I think Nazar said well, have started these programs where they give full scholarships to kids who come out of the city school district and can get into those schools. And the reason they're doing it is not that the numbers are so great, but that it's aspirational. It can show people that if you do well, you can aspire to go into the U of R. And money isn't an object. So I think those kinds of programs, while they're small, they have an impact way beyond the people they touch. And I appreciate very much those institutes making those kinds of commitments.
I disagree with both of my opponents. I think we can make jobs in Rochester. I think there's multiple ways to do it. We have $1.56 million of economic development money, which we usually use to bribe some company to move from the suburbs and transfer their employees into the city. This doesn't create jobs. This just moves them. These people frequently, more than frequently, do not end up living in the city. The benefit we get from it is tiny. Oswego, New York has a great program called The Next Great Idea. They provide training. They have basically a business in a box idea. They judge the best businesses and they give them $25,000. They've done it for 4 years. They've created three. The last one is only a month old. But they've created 3 successful businesses with sales and employees. This is a plan that can be done here in Rochester. We have plenty of people. They have great ideas. We've mentioned some here today. If we use our money on small business development instead of on big projects, I think we can get huge returns. But I also think there's 2 other answers. Every building project, we need to make sure it uses the most local labor it can. Midtown does this for the demolition, and the county jail is built this way. We need to make sure everything is done this way, because that's money that could be benefiting residents here in Rochester in combating poverty. Finally, and I know Tom hates this, and if he wants a minute to rebut, it's probably fair, municipal electric, municipal utilities. We can lower the utility costs here in Rochester. We can do it. The New York State law allows it. There is some capacity on the New York State Power Authority that would allow us to lower the costs, and there are plenty of substantial savings from the efficiency of Rochester because it is a plum in an economic term, because there's a lot of users in a small area, and it's less expensive to distribute to them than the aggregate, which is what's charged for. We can do this.
I'm not against the idea. I mean, I think the idea would be fine, and I have no vested interest in the idea being changed. The problem with the idea, Alex, is it won't work. And the reason it won't work is because the reason Fairport, for instance, has these low rates is Fairport has historically, and almost for 50 years now, gotten a special allocation of hydropower from the Niagara project. And that power is all spoken for. In fact, the state's in the process of taking it away from people and using it for economic development projects. So what happens is this huge advantage that Fairport has, which I particularly think is rather unfair, but they've got it, and they're going to hang on to it as long as they can, puts them in a unique situation. Second reason is that the largest, largest taxpayer in the city of Rochester is the utility company. If you stop the utility company tomorrow, you would create a multi-million-dollar hole in your budget, and you'd have to find a way to fix that. So it's not that it's a bad idea. And you know, think about it this way, folks. Think about it this way. If this was such a great idea, how come no one else in the last 50 years other than Fairport has done it? Why don't Brighton, why don't these other people do it? The fact of the matter is you can't do it anymore. And that's a fact. So I just don't, I'm not against it, I just don't want us to create this pipe dream here, everybody get all excited about it, and then in fact it doesn't work. We've got to move on to something that'll really work.
Can I rebut something else that Tom said? You know, there was a nice speech about colleges preparing these young people for jobs, and education is important. But a lot of college students don't have jobs, and they're spending huge amounts of money to end up with no job. The problem is jobs, not being educated. When people see, and the only reason people spend the kind of money they spend, go into the kind of debt they go into, to go to college, is because they think it enhances their employability. And we're losing that right because too many jobs are being taken away from this country and moved to other countries. So no, it's not a lecture, Mr. Richards. It's going to be a conversation with businesses who say, you can't have it both ways. You can't tell these young people to apply themselves and they'll get something at the end of the rainbow. You got to have, you are the supplier of that something that they need at the end of the rainbow. That's a conversation that's got to be had all over this country, not just in Rochester.